the whole duration of that film, I actually worked on it for 4 years on and off. There was times when they took the shoot to New Zealand and I took like 6 months hiatus. But overall, it was like a 4-year journey on that project. And I'd already been, portraying Jake Sully, to being an alien, learning. I was also a lot of the background Na'vi.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to First Contact. Today's guest is Reuben Langdon. You probably know him from the film Avatar, where he was the stuntman, and he's also done quite a bit of work with productions like Pirates of the Caribbean, the Power Rangers series. He is a stuntman, actor, filmmaker, and a video game star. And it was actually while Reuben was working on James Cameron's Avatar that he had his first UFO sighting. So Reuben, of course, the first thing I have to ask you is tell us about that.
Well, and I think compared to most people, it's a pretty underwhelming experience. It was my gateway into this world as far as the research and everything else. So for me, it was the experience, and I've had much more extravagant, greater experiences and contact experiences since then. But it was pretty simple. I'd been working, about 2007. I'd been working a couple years on Avatar. The whole duration of that film, I actually worked on it for 4 years on and off. There was times when they took the shoot to New Zealand and I took like 6 months hiatus. But overall, it was like a 4-year journey on that project. And I'd already been, portraying Jake Sully, to being an alien, learning. I was also a lot of the background Na'vi, doing a lot of the stunts for them when they're getting blown up or falling off the horses or attacking the soldiers. And I was also soldiers. I wore many hats on that project. But I'd been sort of, I guess, working and talking about ETs amongst my friends. I became aware of the Dr. Stephen Greer's Disclosure Project because YouTube had just come out, and it was sort of a conversation that we were having on set with some of the other actors and performers. So it was in my awareness. And then I had that day where in a clear blue sky in the middle of the day, I saw a lot of these little white, looked like almost like stars in the middle of the day, if you can imagine, almost like in my background here with these little white specks. And there was, I guess what we could call now a fleet of them in the dark blue sky in Burbank, California. And I was mind blown. I was like, wait, am I seeing a UFO? I was questioning my reality at the time. I'm like, what is going on here? What is happening? And after about 40 minutes or so of just constant staring at this cluster of star-like objects in the blue sky, they started to disappear one by one until there was just one left. And I was like, I've got my eyes on you. And then it went away. And I was mind blown. I went and told all my friends the next day. I was on set back the next day on Avatar, and I said, I saw these UFOs. It's crazy. Our reality is so weird. And I remember thinking at the time that it was just going to be this worldwide event, like everybody saw it. I just thought everybody saw it, and this now we're in a new paradigm was sort of my what I thought was going to happen. And then the next day was crickets, nothing on the news. And I was starting to like question, it's like, wait a minute, did I see what did I see? Why didn't other people see it? And then that's when I started really researching and going down the rabbit hole of, what is our reality? What is this UFO phenomenon that other people are experiencing? And then looked up Dr. Stephen Greer and then actually became, joined some of his C5 experiences, in like 2010 and whatnot. And that was by the start of my journey down this UFO rabbit hole.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so my first thing that I have to get into is I've had this theory for a while, probably since the first Avatar movie came out, that film is somehow channeled. Like, I don't know where James Cameron gets his information from, but it's not from this planet, right?
Well, he's publicly said he it came to him in a dream. And
Right. Yes, and I have heard him say that as well. And then it makes me wonder, where is that information coming from? And actually, recently, the event that you and I met at in Sedona, there was another lady there, Marilyn, who channels a being called Zaza. I think she was situated in the same corridor with you, because you had your booth and then she had hers just down the column from you. And she was at the contact event that we all did in Sedona on the Monday night after the conference finished. And
right.
That was a really profound experience, which is a longer story in and of itself. But essentially, one of my starships came through and her beings came through. And one of her beings came to me in a dream. And it looked like the Na'vi. And I was like, hold up a second here. So I just started, piecing these things together in my mind and going, well, okay, there's this being called Zaza. And I forget which planetary star system he's from, but Marilyn would know that.
Palladian, I think he's Palladian. I've interviewed him, actually.
Oh, yeah, okay, right.
The Palladian, but with Elven. They were like a Palladian combination.
Yes, beautiful. And it looked like the Na'vi people. I mean, there was too much coincidence there for me. And of course, these things happen a decade apart. The film comes out, I have this theory, and then it was only this year that I met Marilyn. And then I had this mind-blowing moment where I thought, geez, is there really this, is there some sort of connection coming through in that? I mean, we're just sort of speculating here, but do you think there could be some connection in that?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind that there's connections to our dreams, to how we receive information, to inspiration. What we're guided to follow with our passions and what we're excited about is absolutely, I believe, connected to these other realms where there are other versions of ourselves that share same oversouls and whatnot that are, gently pushing us into following our passions if we choose to. We still have free will, but I do absolutely believe that we're always getting a gentle nudge to follow these threads, so to say, through dreams, through coincidences, through our meetings of new people and friends and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that. And I see that even with Star Trek and, a lot of those other sci-fi things, which ironically I don't watch most of them, but yeah, when I saw the logo for, I think it's Star Trek. You have to excuse me for not knowing my sci-fi very well, but it's that kind of A symbol. And then when I looked at that and I thought, okay, I mean, that just reminds me of the Ashtar Command. I can feel like that is their logo. So I mean, if he got it in a dream, cool. But yeah, I have to suspect that there's probably something more to it just being a dream. So yeah, I just find that very fascinating. Now, I want to know about some of the more, I guess, tangible experiences. That was very tangible, but you said you've had some bigger experiences from there. What's the most profound sighting and experience that you've had?
Well, I've become sort of an avid CE5 partaker, I guess you could call it that. What's the terms? Partaker, participant, and often leading CE5 expeditions. And CE5 is, Dr. Stephen Greer coined the term Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where, as you joined on that Monday event, where a group of people gather in a circle and usually hold a meditation, and it's has to do with sending out intention to make contact to our star families. And so I've been doing that over the years quite regularly, and so I'm and almost every time I get some sort of lights in the sky or download per se, information, and in some cases, depending on the group, there's more profound, tangible experiences, and then there, as opposed to others. However, to date, I should say my most mind-blowing experience that I've had is I had a visitation from a mantis being twice, and the second time was after going out and sort of having a meditation. I used to live in Big Bear, California, and having a meditation at a very sacred place called Eye of God. It's a giant crystal structure that just sort of sticks out in the Serrano Indians. used to do ceremony there and had a very sacred place. And the energy is quite palatable. You can feel it when you're there. So I was out there, and then on the drive home, my teeth started clicking and clattering, and I was like feeling kind of funky. I was like, what's going on? Something's here. And a week prior in a meditation, I had seen a very clear vision in my mind's eye of a mantis being, the typical sort of praying mantis looking characters. And I just kind of like, oh, that was interesting. And wow, it's so clear. And I've never, and I usually don't get those clear images in my meditations. It's, I get hints and ideas, but it was very clear. And I was like, wow. And I took notice. And a week later, and it was also happened to be a solar eclipse that day. So I was out at the Eye of God, sort of doing a bit of a ceremony, you could say, or meditation with some friends. And on the drive home, I was getting these clickings and clatterings with my teeth and feeling kind of, I don't know, buzzed in a way with energy, like going through my body. And I got home and I told my friends, I said, I got to go lay down. Something's off. I just kind of don't feel well. And then, and I just laid in bed and I perceived to get zapped. I could just feel a lot of energy running through my body. I was kind of flopping around like a fish, and I got very clear images and details and contact from a mantis being. And I didn't have my eye open, so I couldn't really see if anything visually in my room. I did from time to time open my eyes, and there was nothing there. But in my mind's eye, again, in sort of this meditative state while flopping around, I received a lot of information in a sort of a telepathic dialogue with this being that was giving me all kinds of information, basically answering a lot of the questions I had about creation, about, those beings, what their role was. And I had already started my show, so I was already kind of used to asking those types of questions to ETs and from other people like Marilyn and Cesar. So I had the sort of the inquisitive mind and the interview type of dialogue, or I was feeling comfortable. So I was like, here I am getting direct contact. I might as well ask as many questions as I can telepathically. So I did, and I received a lot of fun, interesting information that still my mind is blown to date, because I'll hear stuff from other people or have contact with other people. I've had contact with those types of beings, and then they'll share little nuggets that I haven't been able to find on the internet or research anywhere else, that just are like, oh yeah, that's what the being told me as well. So those are nice little confirmations when those happen.
Yeah, I love when that happens. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are connecting to very similar sources of information, right? Mm-hmm. I guess one of the big topics that everyone's asking about right now is, when is open contact going to happen? Do you have any information about that, either from yourself or the interviews that you've done?
Well, you had contact that Monday after the event.
I did.
That was open contact. I think we're having open contact now.
Yeah, I love that. That's basically what I say to everyone on First Contact as well, as open contact is when you choose to have contact. I guess the question out there in the public is there going to be some like official disclosure or something like at a more mass scale, rather than just the little experiences that we're having? Personally, what I've been told is it's just up to us. I mean, it's up to us to go out there and just, each person will have their own contact, and there's your contact,
That's my belief, and that's what I keep getting from these beings. Logically, when you think about it, we're living in a society right now that is in turmoil. Collectively, our cultures from all over the world are sort of figuring out this new operating system, and in doing so, there's a lot of purging of the old ways. So there's a lot of fear that's out there, and if and there's a lot of projection now that we, in U.S. Congress, last year we had David Grush and others testifying that crash retrievals are real. It's in the news again this week. There's talk of another hearing coming up sometime this month, and the narrative that's being pushed is one that absolutely ETs are real, that the U.S. has had crash retrieval programs, and that bodies were recovered, biologics. So that's already making its way out to the collective. Now, on top of that, you have an underlying, almost subliminal fear tactic that's being pushed into the collective to propel the military-industrial complex and to get contracts for making weapons. So because of that's sort of the collective story, and we're having our conversations in this way, talking about contact, and anybody can do it. And there's like these different narratives that are colliding. We are having benevolent, amazing contact experiences, but the collective news media and the propaganda that's being pushed through the collective is very fear-based for the most part, from what I've seen. So you have to think of it from the ET's perspective. If they start showing up in mass, is that going to create more fear, or is that going to create more harmony? And at the current state of the collective, with all the chaos that's going on, and we're still trying to figure out, if who's everybody's pointing the finger at, are you wearing a mask or you're not wearing a mask, or are you against this politician or for that politician? And it's madness out there. So with all of that chaos, to throw in a mass contact experience or a mass sighting experience, it's like throwing oil in the fire, in my opinion. So I would imagine that they're going to hold off and wait for us individually, for our conversations like we're having now, to become more the norm. And once that number overrides any of the propaganda and the silliness that's being put out there, then maybe they'll start showing up in a more of a mass type situation.
Yeah, I think that's so beautifully put, and very aligned with the messages that I've received as well. Because, I get asked all the time, oh, if you talk to the Galactic Federation, why don't you just tell them to come down? And I'm like, well, this is a bit more complicated than that, because I think there's about the energetic component as well. When you have a planet full of people, if they all go into fear at the same time, what that creates is not nice. And so there is that.
Well, we're seeing it right now. Well, we're seeing right now with our weather systems, and with the wars. This is already, and a lot of these are being sort of egged on and perpetuated to create the fear. But a lot of it is a byproduct of the fear. So it's a spiraling loop that we have to put a stop to and purge before we get to a state where we can have open contact, I believe.
Are there any beings on Earth or somewhere in the universe who benefit from this state of fear?
Oh, absolutely. Look at our political situation. Look at our monetary situation. Look at how much money was made during the pandemic when it came to the pharmaceutical industrial complex. Look at it. Look at all the money that's being made from the military industrial complex and the bombing of citizens from around the world, and perpetuating a fear. Whether it's the democracy is being taken away from the people of Ukraine, to fear of terrorists that that have ancient swords and shields, and terrorists are going to come and get you in the middle of the night and eat your babies. These are perpetuated stories that absolutely fuel these individuals and groups that feed and grow their harems, so to say, through the perpetuating of fear. So and with that comes a whole dark arena of when you get into the human trafficking and child stuff. There's a whole other element there. But yeah, absolutely, there are beings, human beings, not just other beings, and usually behind those human beings, there are darker entities that are feeding off of those perpetuation of fear.
Right. Yeah. I think with the awareness of that, I mean, what can we do about that? It's very easy to say, okay, let's all just be love and light and and, it will make it go away. And to some extent, I mean, there's a lot of truth in that. But then we look at the world around us and we see that there is all this suffering going on and people are perpetuating those cycles and there is a level of ignorance out there. What do you think there are some practical things that we can do as a human species so that we can transcend that?
First and foremost, don't perpetuate it anymore. If it's already happening, there's no need to continue to, throw fuel to the fire, so to say. So ignore and focus on things of the light. Focus on positive conversations about having benevolent contact, as opposed to fear-mongering about, the potential of, evil aliens coming and taking your babies. And then education and having these, sharing your personal benevolent contact experiences, me sharing my personal benevolent contact situations, and the positivity that you and I and others have gotten from these contact experiences and how they've made positive impacts in our lives, and just sharing, the Gandhi famous saying, be the change you wish to see in others. So, instead of, again, buying into the fear mongering, just say, hey, well, yes, and ignoring it is not a good thing either. So calling it out, calling a spade. Yes, there is death happening in certain parts of the world. There is intentional fear mongering to fuel certain things, but all that is done intentional by certain groups of people that are not us. We don't have to fall into that storyline. So let's create the new world and let's envision a new world where that doesn't exist or where that can't exist. And yes, it exists now, so you don't want to ignore it. You can't be blind and say, well, that doesn't exist. And all, no, it does. Absolutely it does. But the only way to get out of that system or these worlds is to have an alternative, to create a choice. And by sharing the options and the choices that are out there from personal experience, I think is the most powerful way to give people the option to choose. Hey, you want to go, wallow in the sorrow and become a victim and stay in a perpetuated state of fear? Or do you want to build a new earth where, those things don't exist? There is no human trafficking. There is no military industrial complex. There is no pharmaceutical industrial complex. There's, holistic living with nature and contact with benevolent beings. And we're all here to help each other out. So it's like, which story do you wish to perpetuate?
It's like that story of the shaman and the two wolves, right? And which wolf is the one that comes out? Well, it's the one that you feed. We feed the wolf of the fear, or we feed the wolf of the new earth, and that's what we're going to get.
Absolutely.
Ruben, I have to ask, having had all this contact, especially the experience with the mantis beings, you said they told you about creation. Tell me more about that.
Wow. So just to sort of define the mantis beings, the way a lot of people, again, perpetuate fear onto the mantis beings. Oh, they're evil. It's like the Zetas.
Reptilians as well.
The reptilians, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think the universe is smarter than that and it's in the way it works. I mean, when we look, us humans, we are so simple in our and how we perceive things. We go out into the woods, perhaps, and we see all the different insects and the diversity in nature and the plants and life. And we see a wolf killing a deer, per se. Is that wolf evil? Or is that wolf simply taking what it needs to feed its family? It's, its cubs and whatnot. Is it for life? And I believe nature has an ecosystem, and we can see that through the inner workings of everything. And we're so, we just like to label everything evil or good, and it's cut and dry when it's not. Things have to work in a symbiotically. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. I've been living in Japan the past couple of weeks now. My mind has shifted over to
Japanese word for that.
the English isn't coming so fluent as it used to, but there's a lot of everywhere in nature. There's a symbiotic relationship, and when those ecosystems are thriving and flowing, then more life is created. So and just because one aspect of that may inconvenience us as humans, we call that evil. So what the Mantis showed me is that they are the facilitators of desire. They work behind the veil of the matrix of our physical matrix and how we experience our life through light codes and a lot of sacred geometry and how that gets condensed down into matter. And they are masters of frequency, so they can see. Let's say the example I like to give is if you have, so for example, you're in Australia, I'm now in Japan, I was in the States, but we're giving off a specific frequency that the mantis beings can, from their super wide view, can see these little red dots. There's a frequency and there's a frequency. And we know how through quantum entanglement and how like frequencies like to attract, the law of attraction. So what they will do is they will create the circumstances and synchronicities, for example, to have, if you're driving down the street and the light goes from green to red, so you go at the right timing to get, but maybe it's not the right timing, so maybe you need to stop and wait 5 minutes to get to the next light, so this person will get there to meet you at the exact same moment, so you both arrive at the convenience store at the right time to get that meeting. Those little, they're like, from what I was shown, was they're like little operators with like, okay, this light needs to get to this light, so we're going to tune and tweak all the little things that need to happen to make these two frequencies or red lights that are maybe giving off, so then they can have the meeting to make it happen at the right time. And I know we've been trying to make this meeting happen for a while, but I was moving and all that stuff, and the universe, the Mantis beings being part of the orchestrators of this universe, the facilitators of desire and matrix manipulators, are constantly tweaking and tuning to find the right timing so it's the best benefit for all, if that makes sense. So and again, our little monkey minds down here, it may seem like, well, I want to have that now, but maybe that's not going to be the best for all of life and creation and all of the different things that are happening in the moment. So what we do in our monkey minds is we call that evil, because I can't have my thing right now. That's evil. No, that's just the universe and how it works. And we have to like stay in tune to all the different elements and surroundings, because the ego wants to be just me, but there's so many other aspects that are happening here in this experience that the Mantis are helping to facilitate, including, for example, we've seen many contactees have talked about seeing Mantis beings working with reptilians. Many have talked about seeing the Mantis beings working with Zetas and Grays. Many Mantis beings work with angelic figures as well, and with Pleiadian types or the tall whites or whatever. So they're not exclusive to one side per se, and they are helping facilitate the desires of all the beings and find that harmony so everybody gets a piece of the pie and it syncs up, so it's in the best benefit for all different players so they can get the evolutionary growth that they need to have, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I always ask the parking fairies when I need a parking spot. Who you asking?
Exactly.
Just being
there you go.
Hey guys, come on, man, get that light to go green so that I can get the parking spot.
I'm sure those fairies and the Mantis they're hanging out and talking.
They're in cahoots, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that they did tell me too was the reptilians actually look to the Mantis beings how we look to angels, sort of archangels, to help us, guide us, and go through our lives. They appear to reptilians in sort of an angelic way. And many people many humans who have contact with Mantis talk about an angelic type feeling, benevolence, of unconditional love, and winged. Sometimes, mantis have wings. So I think I think they show up for us in different ways, depending on the individual and their belief system, and also the civilization, perhaps. But I do think they have a very similar role to angels.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. You also mentioned the interaction briefly with the sacred geometry and the frequencies. Mm-hmm. So I had an experience years ago where I was shown how everything is made of sound, and then they showed me a beam of light. It was like the beam of light was kind of being carried on the sound, like imagine an invisible sound wave, because it's invisible. So you have this like vibration that's invisible, but then the light is carried over that. And then they showed me a second beam of light, and they said that when the two beams of light interact, depending on the geometry at which they intersect, it's going to determine what that creates. Don't ask me to get into the specifics of it, but basically it was like, if it happens at this angle, then it creates this kind of atom, or if it happens at another geometry or another angle, it creates something else. And so then I kind of said, like, what determines what it becomes? Like, who is the free will? And I guess part of the conversation, the way that I interpreted what you just said, is this element of divine will. Like, it's like the mantis beings, they're looking at everyone's, like you said, their desires, and then they're looking at what's the most harmonious way. The best way that I can describe that, well, that sounds to me like the harmony of the divine will, like when everything comes into unity together. And some people, that's really essentially what a lot of people call 5D consciousness, right? When we're in that 5D space of unified field consciousness, and what is in alignment for one person is also in alignment with another person. And so I wonder if there's a connection between, what's happening in the 3D with our collective thoughts down to that molecular level of creation where the beams of light are interacting, and the piece that tells it how to do that. Could that be divine will? I mean, that's a great question to ask. Really.
I from all of my questioning of the ETs and diving down all the rabbit holes I've been down, I would say you're absolutely spot on with that.
Right. That's so cool. I just had that experience years ago, and it's something that's really sat with me. And at the time, that couldn't really make sense. I mean, sure, you've had these experiences as well, right? Where they show you something and then years down the track, it makes sense. And you go, oh, right, that's that thing that they were trying to show me. But it's just beautiful that so many people are having these similar realizations. And there's such an overlap now between the ET side of things and also what the spiritual masters have been saying for such a long time. Because I feel like this knowledge has been around for a while. Maybe not in the context of UFOs and ETs and the intergalactic side of things, but just from a creationary perspective, I think this might be a case of all roads lead to Rome.
Yes, absolutely. I concur. I agree. I think we're the answers of the universe are right outside in our backyards, in nature. And within ourselves, we constantly are hearing that from the sages and the yogis and the philosophers. So it absolutely is that. And as you said, we're in this new with this new language of an understanding of ETs. It's just the language of the day, so to say. And the ancient texts that we read through the Bible and other ancient texts that are giving us our spiritual guidance and knowledge they were just using the language of the day and the understanding of the current paradigm of the collective of that time. And that evolves and that changes and it's constantly changing. And in my opinion, it's no more wrong or different or worse or better than what we're using today. We're just using this new perspective now that we've been out in space, and some people argue that, but I believe we've sort of figured out the world is round, and we have this perspective of stars and galaxies and the sun, and we're no longer everything revolves around Earth, and we're kind of going around the sun, and the sun's going around other suns, and it's just, it's a galaxy, and that's the new hip language of the day, because we have, this new perspective on things.
That's so incredible. So what's one of the most profound messages you've received from these beings about the human race, and like if they have any message for humanity, what would that be?
Well, number one, we're not alone. Clearly, we're having these experiences. And number two, just basically I said that the answers to every question, everything we ever wanted or could want or desire are, either in our backyard. And I say that because you can just go in your backyard and close your eyes and tap into the universal field of consciousness and get basically the answers to anything. Easier said than done, clearly. Not everybody has the tools and the techniques to do that. And I'm myself am not saying I have those tools either. That's why I have a whole TV show called Interviewer with Ed, where I go and I talk to other people who could do that and get it through that form and modality. But in my own exploration into different modalities of meditation and breath work and medicine ceremonies and whatnot, I've been able to access a lot of information, and it's been profound, life-changing, and it never ends. We're always course correcting. We're always figuring things out as we go. If anybody says they have all the answers to the universe, I would run the other direction. But it is obtainable, and I think it is unique and different for each of us. I think we all have a unique perspective that is a blessing, but many times also a curse, because sometimes we get so caught up in our unique perspective that we forget to include others. So that's, that's, I think, just the basic gist of it is, we're having this beautiful human experience, and embrace it and enjoy it. And in the moments, from moment to moment, yes, there's a lot of suffering and sort of harsh situations on the planet, especially now. But simultaneously, there's so much beauty. There's so much new things to discover. And, like Star Trek, right? I'm a big Star Trek fan. And I love the slogan, to boldly go where no one has gone before, to seek and out and search new life. How it's just so much fun to hear and experience what others are experiencing. And we're always looking outside of our world for that life and for those different experiences. But just within our own world, there's so much diversity and so many different humans having different experiences and different belief systems and understandings of how things work. We don't have to go to the stars. We can go to our next door neighbor or to the neighboring country or wherever. There's so much there to explore and learn.
That's so beautiful. So you have quite a bit of involvement with, Hollywood, the media sort of space. Do you think they're going to release something that is not so fear-based? I mean, Avatar was incredible, but it was still, war, and it had that kind of theme to it. And I've had this vision for a long time that, because, I mean, you probably know this, Ruben, whatever you watch, whatever you consume, when you view something on a TV, a movie, your brain processes that and can't actually tell the difference between whether it's real or not. Every image that it sees, it perceives it as real. And so even when we're watching a movie, when you have millions of people watching these movies, if they are violent or if they are, fear-based, we're creating that vibration. And I see the media as having a really pivotal role. If they decided to put essentially the film or journey of ascension out as a movie and everybody watched that, we'd literally program ourselves into that new earth very quickly. Do you think anyone in Hollywood has a plan to do that right now?
Oh, I think a lot of people do have that plan, and a lot of people want that to happen. But we have to look at the structure of how Hollywood is set up and how these different agencies, just like going into the pharmaceutical and to the military industrial complex, they're thriving because Hollywood and the media propaganda is so intertwined with those institutions. So what we are experiencing now And the reason Hollywood is so afraid of AI is not because jobs are going to be lost, which they are. Jobs have already been lost for AI, but basically one person can create their own avatar experience with the help of AI. And we're going to see a whole new slew of filmmakers that are not going to be bogged down by the institutions. And Hollywood is a machine. You've probably heard that phrase, the machine of Hollywood. And there's a lot of steps along the way of Hollywood that are barriers to keep certain messages from reaching the masses. I, in a sense, left Hollywood to pursue my own show, Interview with Ed, because that was the message and that was the story that I wanted to tell, but nobody in Hollywood was interested. So I had to go independent, and literally I didn't even have any friends in the industry that even wanted to follow me on the journey. So I literally had to learn camera, sound, and everything else on my own, and take the equipment and go produce and do my own show and self-produce it, self-edit it, and then put it out there. And then, Gaia was interested and they took it and put it out. So I kind of circumvented that Hollywood machine. And now it's just going to become so much easier for filmmakers to create, grand scale masterpieces to the quality of Avatar with the advent of AI. So I'm very positive about the direction of content and content creators being able to have the tools now that they don't have to be slaves to that system and have constant roadblocks. So I would say in the coming years, we're going to see a ton of independent projects being created with the quality of Avatar that will have the messages that we've all been wanting to see. They may not have the distribution advents in the beginning, but now that through YouTube and other self-distribution platforms, we have podcasts, and the whole paradigm is getting smashed to bits with this content creation becoming easier for the individual to create and not have to go through all those steps. So I'm super excited. I'm sad because I was part of that Hollywood machine, but I'm more excited than sad because I think giving the tools to a much larger group of content creators and giving them access to these tools is just going to benefit humanity as a whole, instead of keeping it all compartmentalized and in such small containment as the old Hollywood machine was.
That feels so exciting and hopeful for me. I mean, I've had this vision of creating a film for years, and then I think, well, I don't know anyone, I don't have funding, I don't know how to use the camera. Like, there's a lot of barriers, for me to actually get there. And to think that an AI could just come along and create that is, that feels quite exciting. I guess it will come down to the intention that each individual has, because if someone like me could do it, someone else could also do the same thing, and whether or not they have the same intentions, I guess it's going to come down to what we decide as a collective to how we utilize that. But I think that's overall quite a hopeful message, I think, for those of us who have things that we want to share and maybe don't want to go through all the cogs in the Hollywood machine.
Yeah, and it's already happening. I mean, look at, we're having this podcast, and we're going to, with a few clicks of a button, it can get out to, millions of people could view it if they wish to. And it is a lot of people want that magic button or that magic pill to, just put this out in Hollywood and then it'll go out to the masses. But you have to realize the years, the decades, the millennia of years of programming that the human collective has been through. One of the reasons Avatar, as beautiful story as it was, and it still is, and it has this other world that James Cameron was able to bring to life that we could all experience. It has those elements of the war because there's still a lot of people, and it's successful because of those elements. A lot of people, I would say, if you take those elements out, it wouldn't be as successful. We as humans have been programmed that war is normal, that fighting is the norm. And there's a resonance to, not all of us. I definitely don't resonate with that story anymore. I used to. That was my gig. I was a action choreographer, fighter, stuntman, and that's, I was every day living, eating, breathing war and death and destruction. now I can't stand it. I can't get 10 minutes into a John Wick film before I have to turn it off. It's the nonsense and the senseless violence doesn't resonate with me anymore. And there's a lot of people that are moving in that direction. So we will hit a period where there will be the collective consciousness no longer resonates with those stories, with those war stories, and where we can have an avatar that just focuses on, swimming with the whales and, interacting with the alien life forms and in a positive, interconnected way. So we'll get there, but it is a slow moving boat, and we just have to be patient.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for that day to come. I don't watch a lot of, reality TV or anything, but if someone gave me a show that was just beautiful and you go hang out with the whales and then you go travel in your Merkaba light body to another planet, I would watch that show.
Absolutely. Me too. Maybe that's what we need to make.
What's that?
Well, I think that's what we need to make. So if there's and that was my whole, desire to create my show was, I was like, why is not everybody interviewing these ETs and getting the answers to the universe? Like, I can't believe nobody's done this yet. So I was like, well, if nobody's going to do it, I'm going to do it. So that was, my inspiration. So usually that's where, I think you're tapping into something right there. You just wrote your script for your show.
Oh, I haven't. I've had it for 2 years. I just don't know how to produce it.
Well, I would definitely look into some of these AI tools that are coming out, because literally we're getting closer and closer to the day where you can, if you have a show written in writing form, you could literally input it into the AI and it'll spit out a movie. That's coming very quick.
That's so cool. I love it. Ruben, last question before we jump off. When was the last time you connected with these mantis beings?
Oh, let me see. I did have, I think unconsciously I'm probably connecting to them way more than I know, through those little synchronicity, little nudges and things like that. But I did have an ayahuasca experience a couple years ago where they showed up in the room for me, and I could see, eyes open, visual shadows of their beingness. I guess they were very tall and big, and I was like, how do they fit in the room like this? But I would say that was definitely another sort of those contact experiences under the influence of ayahuasca. But there was another person in the room that I got a download the night before to play certain symbols on a symbol on a giant gong. And he showed me, and he's like, Ruben, do you know what this is? And I said, yeah, that's light language. And he goes, well, what do I do? And I said, well, maybe you should play draw out the light language or play it on the gong. And he used the little mallet, and he started doing that. And when he did that, these mantis beings showed up in the room. I didn't get any specific information other than just more details of, how they were working with the people in the room during the ceremony and helping them purge things that weren't serving, and, why we were collected there. It was more of a personal thing for the people in the room, but it was interesting to see how they showed up at that time. Yeah.
Well, just the reason I ask is they're here right now. They've been tapping me on my shoulder for the last 10 to 15 minutes of this.
Oh.
So I'm like, I don't know if you're aware of that or if it's like just me, but I think they're trying pretty hard to get through to you right now.
Okay, I'm kind of stubborn in a lot of ways. I'm not super sensitive. I say this, and I'm working on it, but I'm not super sensitive on these things, and I think it's intentional for me, so I can go dive deeper and try to go deeper into understanding things. Because if they were always there just telling me things, I might get distracted and lose my focus. But that's cool. Are there any messages that you're able to tap into?
Let me see what there's.
Other than I need to open myself up more to more.
It's basically that. It's basically like, it's along those lines of they want you to connect.
Okay.
And I don't even normally connect with the mantis beings. I think this is the first time actually that I've connected because of your connection with them. Because I have my own groups that I connect with. Let's see, what else do you want to say? It's just we're here for you. We want you to meet us. Actually, it's a very specific message. They're saying there's going to be a meeting soon.
Okay.
And for you to keep your eyes open for that.
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know what nature that is, but I feel like it's going to be quite a tangible experience for you.
Awesome. Well, I just moved here to our new house in Japan, and we're in the countryside, and I'm excited to get our sort of home affairs situated so I can spend time to go out into nature and be with the different beings. So,
beautiful. Is there a forest nearby?
Oh, I'm looking right through my window right here. There's a big forest.
They're showing me that they're going to meet you in that section of the forest.
No, excellent. All right.
Well, thank you, Ruben. It's been a wonderful conversation. And where can people find out more about you and follow your current projects?
Well, the easiest is interviewwithed.com or .org. It's all one word, and that's just my show website. And through that, we have lots of different portals you can go off and explore. We have a membership portal that I basically do every week. I do interviews just like on my show. We do it live on Zoom, and then our members can tune in and ask questions. I also do a thing on Fridays called Langdon's Lowdown, where I sort of go through all the nonsense in the news every week and sort of break it down and try to give a different perspective as opposed to the fear-mongering and propaganda that is usually being pushed through the news cycles. I try to, look at it from this lens and from that lens and try to take the widest view possible to sort of let go of all the fear that comes with it and look at the trends. I'm a big advocate for new technologies, cryptocurrencies, and, steering the ship in the direction of the new earth as much as possible. So trying to help people focus on the things that they want and let go of the things that aren't serving and don't want.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ruben. So everyone who's tuning in, go check out Interviews with Ed. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you give us a like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And we'll see you guys next time on First Contact.